Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started. So, ever wondered how some people just seem to, slice right through all the information noise? They just absorb really complex stuff and, boom, land on what actually matters.
Yeah, and, sometimes they even manage to make it kind of fun. Or at least make it stick in your head somehow.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what we aim for here at the Deep Dive. We take a whole bunch of sources, could be articles, research, maybe our own field notes, and we dig out those essential nuggets, those insights that help you get genuinely well-informed.
And often, with a surprising fact or two thrown in just to keep things interesting.
Right. Keeps you hooked. Okay, let's unpack this.
Today, we're diving deep into a world where, honestly, every single word, every little pause in communication can literally mean the difference between mission success and, complete failure.
Wow, okay. High stakes.
Very high stakes. We're talking about this surprisingly complex but absolutely critical world of communication and briefings, specifically in aviation and remotely piloted aircraft systems, what most people just call RPAS, or drones.
And I gotta say, this isn't gonna be just some dry, boring list of rules or technical terms. Seriously, we've dug up some historical stories that are so wild they almost feel made up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, plus, we've distilled down the really crucial regulations that literally changed the game for safety. And we've got this amazing collection of real-world examples, these briefing gap scenarios.
The moments where things went wrong because someone didn't say the right thing or didn't say anything at all.
Exactly. Stories that'll make you shake your head, maybe chuckle a bit sometimes. But the point is, they make these vital lessons really memorable and, dare I say it, kind of fun to learn.
That's absolutely the goal. Our mission, really, for you listening, isn't just to get what good communication looks like in these situations. Mm-hmm. It's to understand why it's so incredibly vital.
Right.
How it evolves sometimes from, total chaos. And, maybe most importantly, how you can take these lessons, which are surprisingly universal, and apply them anywhere clear communication is key.
Any field, really.
Pretty much any field. Mm-hmm. We want to give you those real aha moments, where complex stuff just clicks and sticks with you. And for this deep dive, our sources cover historical overviews, regulatory timelines, and a really insightful bunch of those real-world briefing gap stories that show the human side of it all.
All right, then buckle up. We're taking off on a pretty fascinating trip back in time. We're going to explore the surprising and sometimes really dramatic history of aviation communication, tracing it from, like you said, total chaos to the clarity and rules we expect today.
And there's music involved.
And yes, as promised, there's even a little music in this origin story.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's truly fascinating when you look back is how the sheer need for clear, unambiguous talk became so fundamental. Almost painfully obvious, really, because of the tragic lessons learned.
Painfully obvious is right.
In aviation's early days, pilots and the first air traffic controllers were, basically speaking different languages. Imagine trying to coordinate flights when one pilot radios circle around, another says orbit, and a third just shouts, go back.
It sounds like a comedy sketch.
It does, but the reality was anything but funny. This wasn't just about being inefficient. It was a massive safety hazard. This varied individual lingo, sometimes called pilotese, which sounds kind of cute but was actually dangerous, it directly led to multiple catastrophic mid-air collisions.
Wow.
Yeah. Lives were literally lost because commands were misunderstood. Our sources paint a vivid picture of this era. It was the crucible, really, where the idea of standard phraseology was born out of sheer desperate need. Everyone in the sky had to speak the same language.
So how did they fix it?
Well, the big solution came in the 1950s. The International Civil Aviation Organization, that's ICAO, they stepped in decisively. They didn't just suggest standard phrases. They formally introduced and critically forced the adoption of standard phraseology.
Forced it.
Pretty much. They essentially engineered aviation English as a required global language for flying. It wasn't about culling creativity. It was an urgent, life-saving move. Every pilot, every controller, no matter where they were from, had to use this same precise, shared vocabulary. It's a huge shift towards making communication, well, uncrashable.
Uncrashable communication. I like that. And here's maybe a good way for you to think about this, something that might stick.
Yeah.
Our sources suggest framing any critical briefing like a flight script.
Okay.
When you stick to that script, you're not being robotic or boring, you're being uncrashable. It's a great analogy, right?
Right.
Reminds you that consistency and standardization in how we talk are directly linked to safety.
Yeah, it takes the ambiguity out.
Exactly. Think of that famous movie line, maybe a bit exaggerated. Say again, goose. It kind of perfectly captures the chaos the standardization was designed to eliminate. No room for guessing games. It's so true. Now, from those early chaotic skies, let's shift focus a bit. Let's go into the trenches, military history this time, because the whole idea of a pre-flight briefing, it has this really dramatic, almost cinematic origin story, straight from the bombing missions of World War II.
Oh, wow. Okay, you can almost picture it, can't you? These crews, probably tense, maybe didn't get much sleep, gathered in some dim, smoky room, huddled around these big maps with bits of string showing their exact flight paths, targets, how they'd get in, how they'd get out. Probably smells like stale coffee and cigarettes.
Definitely. And their plans weren't just drop the bombs here. They covered everything imaginable. Detailed evasion tactics that they ran into enemy fighters, complex emergency landing plans if they got hit.
Even like grim stuff, what to do if someone got hurt.
Exactly. Grim protocols for if a crew member was incapacitated or worse. Every possibility was thought through, every role assigned. Total planning.
And that intensity, that meticulous planning, it actually gave us a phrase we use all the time now, probably without even thinking about it. Let's debrief. No way, really.
Yep, that everyday phrase comes directly from those post-mission reviews. After a dangerous combat flight, crews would immediately gather, analyze exactly what went right, what went wrong, and crucially, what they needed to learn for next time. It was this brutal, honest, vital self-assessment born right out of life or death flying.
That's incredible. A direct inheritance, like you said.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense when you think about modern drone operations. Whether it's military surveillance, complex commercial mapping, or critical emergency response.
Like search and rescue.
Exactly. Those detailed pre-flight briefings and, just as importantly, those post-flight debriefs. They're just as critical today, maybe even more so with the technology involved. That meticulous planning for a WWII bomb run.
It's directly mirrored in how drone pilots prep for complex missions now.
Same fundamental idea. Plan everything, fly precisely, and then learn everything you can from the experience to get better. The context changed, but the need for clarity and learning hasn't budged. And if you want the absolute, undeniable peak of procedural rigor, you got to look at NASA. It's the ultimate check, no question.
Oh, yeah?
Our sources point out that NASA astronauts, they have to brief and confirm every single procedure, every step, down to things as basic, as seemingly obvious as how to breathe in a spacesuit.
Wait, seriously? They brief breathing?
They brief breathing.
Yeah.
It's like that sink in for a second, that level of excruciating detail and confirmation.
It's mind-boggling. But it makes sense, right? If the stakes are literally life and death in space, where even breathing needs a protocol, it just highlights the absolute pinnacle of being careful. Every single detail isn't just mentioned. It's briefed, confirmed, reconfirmed by multiple people.
Yeah, it's a powerful analogy our sources give you. If astronauts brief breathing, drone pilots can brief backup comms.
Huh. That's brilliant. That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? The non-negotiable nature of communication rules in high-stakes work.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, and what we can all learn from, is the mindset. It's this proactive, almost relentless anticipation of every single variable, no matter how basic it seems.
Thinking of everything that could possibly go wrong.
Exactly. Building layers of redundancy into every process, making sure that even in the most extreme, unforgiving places, there are absolutely zero dangerous assumptions about what someone knows or what they'll automatically do. It's way beyond just ticking boxes. It's a whole culture of absolute clarity.
Okay, now let's talk about a rule that sadly was born from a truly devastating incident, one that really shaped aviation safety forever. The sterile cockpit rule.
Ah, yes, a very important one.
Back in 1974, an Eastern Airlines crew was getting ready to land in the Florida Everglades. And the sad, almost unbelievable irony. They got totally distracted by a chat about a burned-out landing gear light, a tiny indicator light.
Oh, no.
Yeah. While they were focused on that, nobody was watching their altitude. They literally flew the plane into the ground while having a casual conversation.
That's horrific and completely preventable. It was a huge wake-up call for the industry. That tragedy directly led to the universal adoption of the sterile cockpit rule.
Which means
Absolutely no non-essential talk. No chit-chat, no distractions at all during critical phases of flight. That means takeoff, landing, any low-altitude maneuvering, emergencies. The focus has to be 100% on the job at hand. It's a rule basically written in blood, designed to stop those fatal distractions.
And it's not just for big airliners, right? This applies to drones, too.
Absolutely. It's wisely borrowed and applied directly to RPAS operations. So for you as a drone pilot, this rule kicks in during takeoff and landing, anytime you're flying close to obstacles or people, and definitely during any emergency. It's non-negotiable.
And our sources even give you a catchy way to remember it. Perfect for exams or just keeping it top of mind. When in doubt, shut your mouth.
Crude, but effective.
Exactly. A key nugget of knowledge that could literally save your drone or prevent something much worse.
Now, speaking of surprising origins and moments that laid the groundwork, the very first voice over the airwaves, it wasn't even meant for aviation, but it totally paved the way for the clear verbal communication we rely on in flight today.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, back in 1906, this brilliant Canadian inventor, Reginald Fessenden, made history. He conducted what's widely seen as the very first voice radio broadcast.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, almost funny. Imagine you're on a ship way out at sea in 1906, miles from anywhere. You're expecting nothing but the usual dots and dashes of Morse code.
The click.
Right. And suddenly, through the static, you hear a human voice. Fessenden didn't just broadcast his own voice speaking clearly. Our sources say he followed it up with a live violin solo.
A violin solo? No way.
Yes, and then finished with a reading from the Bible. It was basically a surprise concert broadcast to ships at sea.
That is completely unexpected. What did the sailors think?
Who knows? But it was this revolutionary leap, right? Even though it wasn't about aviation then, it was foundational. The ability to send clear human voice over distance. Game changer. It became absolutely essential later for flight safety, allowing for those instant, precise verbal commands and confirmations that keep planes apart and coordinate everything in the sky. It moved communication from abstract clicks to immediate understanding. So, okay, we've seen how history, sometimes tragically, sometimes surprisingly musically, showed us how vital clear communication is. But now, let's shift from the why in the history and dig into the science. Why do some briefings actually stick in our brains while others just kind of drift away?
This is super important, a real aha moment for you, the listener, and it's backed by cognitive science.
Yeah.
It's often called the 90-second rule.
90 seconds. What's that?
Well, our brains are amazing, obviously, but they do have limits, especially when taking in new information nonstop. Research shows we can really only hold and process about 90 seconds of continuous, unstructured information before details start to fade. Or our mental grip on the main point starts slipping.
90 seconds. That's it. That's like less than 2 minutes. So it's not about having a short attention span. It's just how our brains work.
Exactly. It's pure cognitive science. And it perfectly explains why a good briefing needs structure. It's not just nice to have, it's biologically necessary if you want the information to be absorbed, remembered, and crucially acted on. You have to design your message to work with how our brains function.
Like feeding it in bite-sized chunks.
Precisely. Think of your short-term memory like a buffer. Pour information in continuously for more than 90 seconds without a pause, a shift, a question. That buffer starts to overflow. Details get lost, maybe even jumbled up. Effective briefers know this. They don't just talk at you. They design the briefing, they'll pause strategically, maybe ask a quick check-in question, shift to a visual aid every minute or so.
Letting the brain catch up and reset.
Exactly. It lets that mental buffer consolidate the info it just got and get ready for the next chunk. It's fundamental to how we learn and retain complex stuff, especially under pressure. Without that structure, even critical instructions can just wash over someone.
It's practical, too. Our sources say if your pre-flight chat, your briefing, goes much beyond 2 minutes without some kind of clear structure, without those breaks or shifts, you're probably already losing people's attention.
Yeah, their minds start to wander.
So the takeaway for you is make your info stick by breaking it down, using a framework, making it easy for their brains to grab onto. Digestible chunks.
And speaking of making things crystal clear and avoiding dangerous assumptions. There's this great unofficial rule that a lot of RPAS instructors use. They call it the Harry Potter rule.
The Harry Potter rule. Okay, I love this already. Transport Canada doesn't use that name, obviously.
No, but it perfectly nails a really common and dangerous communication mistake.
So what is it?
The idea is, if your visual observer, your VO, or your payload operator, the PO, acts like they just know what's going on, maybe they nod, maybe they look confident, but they never actually say anything. They're not communicating. They're casting silent spells hoping it all works out.
That's brilliant. Casting spells, not communicating. It's so vivid.
It really highlights the non-negotiable need for explicit communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just like Harry had to say the actual words Extoliarmus, not just wave his wand.
Right, you got to say the spell out loud.
Crew members had to vocalize things too. Observations, intentions, questions. No mind reading aloud on the flight line. Never assume. You need concrete, audible stuff. Eyes on, traffic 3 o'clock, descend 10 meters. This rule just hammers home that assumption is a communication killer. You must speak up, and you must confirm understanding.
Absolutely. Assumptions are just so dangerous in any job where things can go wrong quickly. And if you're not speaking up, if you're just passively listening or hoping people get it, it can lead to this other thing, talking fatigue.
That's right. And this goes way beyond just giving information. It's about really ensuring everyone gets it and buys into it. Studies actually show that crew performance drops, like, sharply if people don't get a chance to speak, if they don't feel heard, or if there isn't structured time for questions.
It's not just about being polite, then.
Not at all. It's about psychological safety, fostering a proactive team. When people feel their input isn't valued or they're just there to follow orders silently, something subtle but really dangerous happens. They stop actively scanning for problems. They stop thinking critically because experience tells them their input isn't wanted.
They disengage. Yeah.
And that quiet disengagement is a silent killer in high-stakes work. Way more dangerous than someone being maybe too quiet out of politeness.
Yeah.
If people aren't truly engaged, they check out.
That makes total sense psychologically.
Yeah.
So what are the practical ways to fight that talking fatigue?
Well, you need to actively, repeatedly invite questions during briefings. Our sources suggest open-ended phrases. Things like, okay, before we launch, does anyone see a hazard I might have missed? Or maybe, can you just repeat the emergency steps back to me so we're sure we're aligned?
Not just any questions, which usually gets silence.
Right. These are tools to actively engage people, confirm they understand, and stop that communication fatigue setting in. It makes sure everyone's mental model of the situation is truly aligned.
Okay, now here's a truly weird but apparently absolutely true story that perfectly shows why priorities need to be crystal clear in a briefing. This one comes from the UK. A visual observer got completely distracted by a cow.
A cow? Seriously, you're not making this up?
Nope. A cow. Apparently the VO got so worried that this cow might get startled by the drone that they just fixated on the cow instead of watching the drone.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So because they weren't watching the drone or warning the pilot, the drone flew right into a tree. You honestly couldn't write this stuff.
That is absurd.
Totally absurd, totally real, and it makes a serious point unforgettable. The lesson. Always brief what the VO's immediate non-negotiable priorities are. In this hilarious but unfortunate case, it's a stark reminder. Drones before cows.
Drones before cows. Okay, that's a nugget of knowledge that will definitely stick. A perfect example of how even minor distractions can cause major problems if priorities aren't absolutely clear.
And for even more sticking power, especially for planning communications really thoroughly, our sources gave us a Sky Commander-worthy memory trick. It's the RADIO mnemonic.
Mnemonics are always helpful.
This one's brilliant, practical, something you can actually use on every advanced flight. RADIO.
Okay, break it down for us.
R is for roles confirmed. Everyone knows exactly who does what.
Got it. A?
A is airspace understood, total clarity on classifications, restrictions, potential traffic.
Makes sense.
D, directional call-out set. You agree beforehand on how you'll describe direction, height, position, like traffic 3 o'clock low?
Standard language again?
I, interruptions protocol, clear rules. When can you interrupt for safety? When should you hold non-urgent stuff?
Crucial. And O?
O, out of comm backup briefed. What's plan B if radios die? Visual signals. Emergency actions.
RADIO roles, airspace, directionals, interruptions, out of comm backup. That's actually really good.
Right. The idea is, before every advanced flight, your RADIO plan needs to be loud and clear, understood by everyone. It's a simple, memorable checklist to make sure you cover all the critical communication bases before you even lift off. no gaps.
And just to make things even stickier, especially maybe for exam prep, you mentioned a bonus.
Oh yeah, this is fun. The sources actually included some rap lines to help drill these points home.
Rap lines. Okay, let's hear them.
All right, first one. Before we fly, we brief the sky who, what, when, where, how, and why. Catchy, right? Hits the core elements.
Nice. And the other one, you said it was about consequences.
Yeah, maybe more for the exam nerves or just avoiding disaster. No plan. That's a jam. One bad call and bam, exam fail. Or worse, the drone's in the dam.
Huh. Okay, a bit dramatic, but it definitely highlights the stakes. No plan, big problem.
Exactly. Makes it memorable, adds a bit of fun, reinforces that this isn't just abstract safety stuff, it's directly tied to passing your exams and, more importantly, not crashing your expensive drone or causing an incident.
Good stuff. Okay, so now let's shift gears a bit. Let's look at how the actual rules around RPAS briefings have changed over time. How we went from basically the Wild West to today's era of formal documentation and accountability.
Yeah, this history is really important for understanding where we are now. Before 2019 specifically, before June 1st, 2019, drone ops in Canada were largely, like you said, the Wild West. It was mostly governed case by case with these things called Special Flight Operations Certificates, or SFOCs.
Right, so each operation was almost like its own little negotiation with Transport Canada.
Pretty much. Which meant there wasn't any consistent national standard for communication or briefings. It was totally SFOC specific. An operator might put some briefing details in their risk plan for the SFOC application, and Transport Canada would review it, but there was no blanket requirement for VO or PO briefings nationwide.
So it was the DIY era of drone comms. People kind of made up their own team communication rules.
Exactly. Led to huge inconsistencies, potential gaps. Then came the big shift. June 1st, 2019, Transport Canada rolled out CARS Part 9X. That officially brought RPAS under a comprehensive, formal set of rules.
A defining moment for the industry, moving from mostly permissive to properly regulated.
And crucially, these new rules included a specific legal duty. Section 901.23 of CARS Part 9X formally made the pilot in command, the PIC, responsible for briefing crew members before the flight.
Ah, so that's when it became law, not just a good idea.
Precisely. First-time briefings were a non-negotiable regulatory obligation, especially for advanced ops. It started standardizing expectations across Canada and aligned us more with ICAO best practices from manned aviation.
Okay, so that was 2019. What happened between then and now?
Well, Transport Canada kept reinforcing the idea through guidance docs, like TP 15263, that's the knowledge requirements document. It clearly talked about needing crew briefings, standard phraseology, clear communication. But our sources say that actual enforcement during that 2019-2024 period was pretty light touch.
Light touch meaning?
Meaning there was no formal requirement to actually document the briefings, no specific rules on how detailed they had to be, no explicit mandates for mid-mission briefings or handling complex multi-crew stuff.
So the guidance was there, but maybe not the teeth.
Right, and the consequence was, unfortunately, a lot of operators probably underbriefed, which led to more near misses and growing concern at the regulatory level about safety. The intent was good, but the strict accountability wasn't quite there yet.
Which brings us right up to the present, or very near future, with this new amendment, SOR 2025-70. Starting in 2025, this makes briefing rules much stricter and critically auditable.
Auditable, that's the key word. This is huge for professional operators. Our sources detail some major changes coming. First, it requires written briefing records for advanced operations. Paper trail or digital log, you need proof.
No more just say, yeah, we briefed.
Nope. It also really clarifies the PIC's absolute responsibility to make sure every crew member truly understands their specific role and duties. And it introduces clear expectations for things like rule switch protocols, like if pilot A hands control to pilot B mid-flight, and mandates structured communication plans.
This is a big practical change.
Inspectors can now ask for your briefing records. Post-flight, during an audit, you have to be able to produce them.
Wow, that's a definite shift from guideline to enforcement. You have to prove you briefed properly, not just claim you did.
Looking at the bigger picture, this really shows the RPAS industry maturing, doesn't it? Best practices are becoming legal must-dos. It reflects the serious professional nature of these operations now. Demonstrable safety. Absolutely. And just to quickly recap those key players setting the rules, there's ICAO internationally, then Transport Canada, TC, with CARS Part 9X, detailed in TP 15263, and now this important new amendment, SOR 2025-70. Understanding this framework is essential for safe and legal drone flights in Canada.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the evolution of the rules. Now let's get into what might be the most impactful part for learning. Real-world scenarios. Our sources have a fantastic collection. These aren't just stories, they're basically critical training tools showing what happens when communication breaks down.
This is definitely the ultimate aha section for me. Learning from other people's mistakes. That makes lessons stick like nothing else. And you're right, these scenarios aren't just interesting. They help you operate safely, and they can seriously help you ace those exam questions.
And there's that memory hack too, right? Linking scenarios to briefing structures.
Yeah. Our sources suggest you can consciously connect these stories to frameworks like CREW. It helps lock it in for recall, makes the learning practical and sticky.
All right, let's dive in. Common pitfalls and how you can avoid them. First up, the missed hazard call. Imagine you're doing an infrastructure inspection, maybe near a highway. You've got a new VO with you, first time on this kind of job.
Okay.
10 minutes in, a low-flying helicopter pops up unexpectedly from the east. Your VO sees it, but they hesitate. They don't call it out until it's almost right on top of you. You have to do a super quick, heart-stopping descent to avoid it. Way too close for comfort.
Yikes. Okay, so what went wrong in the briefing there?
The briefing missed a key detail: how to report hazards. There was no clear, agreed-upon method for calling out approaching aircraft using specific terms like traffic 2 o'clock, moving west, 300 feet low.
So the VO wasn't sure how to say it quickly and clearly.
Exactly. The lesson: always brief exactly how and when to report hazards, especially with new crew. Use standard terms, no ambiguity, no hesitation.
Got it. Okay, next scenario. Wildlife on the field. They're doing an environmental survey near some sensitive wetlands. PIC on 1VO. Suddenly, a big hawk flies into your flight area, circling near the drone.
Okay.
The VO sees it, but again, they hesitate. They look unsure. Like, is this serious enough to abort the mission? Meanwhile, the drone keeps flying, getting dangerously close to the hawk.
The briefing was missing something crucial again. They didn't explicitly cover wildlife encounter thresholds or clear rules for aborting the mission.
Right. The lesson is always brief with specific details what exactly triggers a pause or a full abort. Wildlife proximity, people wandering into the zone, unknown drones. Don't leave those critical decisions up to guesswork in the heat of the moment.
Good one. Okay, how about after dark? Afterthought. Picture doing a thermal scan, maybe of the pipeline, starting at dusk, flying into the night. As it gets properly dark, your payload operator starts really struggling with the thermal camera. They can't make out details, can't interpret the data.
Hard to realize.
You realize the team never really talked about how the fading light would affect everything, how it impacts visual references, how the sensitivity changes, or if you needed special NVG-compatible lighting for the pilot's night vision goggles. Big oversight. The briefing gap was huge. No talk about night lighting, camera mode protocols, or backup plans for losing visual references. Lesson: night ops need way more detailed briefings, covering visibility, sensor coordination, crew expectations in the dark, assumptions at night. Very risky.
Definitely. Okay, scenario 4. Language barrier in the field. You're mapping a construction site. You're the PIC English speaker. Your VO is mainly French speaking, limited English. During the flight, the VO spots a problem and tries desperately to warn you, but struggles to find the right English words fast enough.
Oh no, and the drone!
The drone drifts dangerously close to some scaffolding before they can get the warning out clearly. Almost too late.
So the briefing should have included proactive steps. Briefing clear visual cues, maybe a few basic emergency phrases translated beforehand, or a confirming understanding with agreed hand signals. The lesson: if your crew doesn't share a fluent language, your communication plan must be adapted. Bridge that gap explicitly and actively confirm understanding throughout. Never, ever assume comprehension. Makes sense. Scenario 5. Radio clash at multi-drone operation. Big utility line inspection, multiple drone teams in the same area. Problem is, 2 teams are accidentally using the same radio channel. Constant crosstalk, total confusion.
Recipe for disaster.
Exactly. Your PO hears a call meant for the other team, thinks it's for your drone, and aborts your mission prematurely. Wasted time, wasted resources.
The briefing gap, no communication deconfliction between teams, no assigned radio channels or unique call signs. Lesson: always coordinate channels, crew IDs, and backup comms before starting any multi-team operation. Keep those airwaves clear.
Good point. Okay, the unbriefed road crew. Aerial mapping a rural construction site. Suddenly a flagger down below, who wasn't told about the drone flight, starts waving frantically at your RPAS.
And the VO is thinking,
The VO hesitates, totally confused. Is the flagger warning about a hazard? Or just curious and waving hello, precious seconds lost in confusion?
Briefing, miss. No talk about third-party personnel on site, their awareness or lack thereof, or how to handle signals from non-crew. Lesson. Brief your VO how to interpret and react to gestures from bystanders or workers. Set clear aborted criteria for unexpected external signals. Don't leave it to guesswork.
Right. Now, the over-talkative payload operator. You're flying a drone for a fancy real estate video. Your PO is super focused on getting the perfect shot, constantly calling out creative ideas, pan left, tilt down, get closer.
But they're doing this while you're navigating tricky spots.
Exactly. While you're maneuvering near trees and buildings, you get distracted by the chatter and nearly clip a branch trying to react to their suggestions.
Classic communication protocol failure. No rules set for when to talk and what to talk about during critical flight phases. Lesson. Set clear expectations who speaks when. Define sterile cockpit moments where only safety-critical info is allowed. Focus is key.
Absolutely. Scenario 8. Lost signal, no plan. You're monitoring a large farm, pushing the drone near its range limit. Suddenly, signal lost. The drone automatically starts its return to home, RTH.
Okay, that's what it's supposed to do.
Yes, but your VO panics. They thought the RTH altitude was set to 60 feet, but it was actually programmed for 120 feet. The drone starts climbing right into a tall tree it would have cleared at 60 feet.
Oh, catastrophic misunderstanding. Briefing, miss. No confirmation of RTH settings, especially altitude, and no clear plan for how the crew responds at the link drops. Lesson. Always confirm and brief all fail-safe settings, RTH height behavior before takeoff. Misalignment on automated actions can be disastrous.
Definitely. Scenario 9, equipment malfunction mid-flight, thermal inspection, big industrial site. Your PO reports the thermal cameras freezing up intermittently. Data feed is unreliable. They're unsure. Land now. Keep going. Try to swap payloads. Time wasted and indecision.
Briefing gap. No contingency plan or clear authority chain for equipment failures during flight. Lesson. Pre-brief who decides what to do if a payload or other gear acts up. Chain of command and decision matrix for tech issues must be crystal clear.
Okay, scenario 10, bystander misunderstanding. Flying downtown, inspecting a roof, busy area. A curious member of the public walks up to your VO, starts demanding to know what you're doing.
And the VO.
Gets drawn into a long, distracting conversation. While they're talking to the bystander, they completely miss a manned aircraft entering the nearby airspace.
Classic human factors trap. Should have been briefed. No plan for public interaction and, crucially, how to stay focused on duties despite distractions. Lesson. Brief crew how to handle bystanders, reporters, security. Include instructions. Defer inquiries to PIC. Don't get stuck in conversations mid-flight. Safety first.
Last one for this set, weather shift, no mid-flight rebrief. Power line inspection. Halfway through, a light rain starts. The VO sees it but says nothing, just assumes the drone is waterproof. It isn't. Moments later, water gets in, drone loses power, crashes.
Fatal assumption. Briefing miss. No weather contingency plan or clear protocol for rebriefing if conditions change mid-mission. Lesson. Brief a weather check-in point, especially for longer flights or iffy forecasts. Define who calls abort and under exactly what weather conditions. Never assume readiness for changing weather.
Those scenarios are powerful, aren't they? And like you said, they're not just stories, they're excellent exam prep. Think about the questions they raise. Where do you designate backup landing zones? How do you brief them? How do you ensure trainees act decisively in emergencies? Why is a live verbal briefing still vital, even if you email documents? Each scenario gives you direct insight into potential exam questions.
Incredible lessons. Okay, we've really covered a lot from those surprising historical roots, the cow incident, the radio chaos, right up to current rules. But we're not done yet, right? Let's look beyond just the pre-flight stuff, get into deeper insights, and maybe peek at what's coming next for RPAS communication.
Absolutely. A really crucial point, one often missed by newer operators, is that briefings are dynamic. They aren't just a one-time thing you do at the start and then forget about. While everyone focuses on the pre-flight brief, Transport Canada actually expects and increasingly looks for ongoing briefings throughout complex missions.
Okay, that's a great extra nugget for you listening. Demonstrates a deeper level of understanding. So what are examples of these ongoing briefings?
Think tailboard briefings. Those quick huddles you do on the spot before starting a new phase. Maybe you're repositioning the whole setup, swapping payloads from, say, visual to thermal, or maybe the weather takes a sudden turn.
Makes sense. What else?
Rebriefings if a new crew member joins mid-job, and having robust communication plans ready for real-time handoffs if pilots swap control, or for handling sudden emergencies. So for exams, expect questions like, you switch payloads mid-mission, what's required? The answer: a mid-operation rebriefing to get everyone aligned on the new setup.
Got it. Dynamic, not static.
Exactly. And this connects to another vital point: accountability for your communication style, not just the content. Transport Canada is increasingly looking at whether briefings are actually understandable to the crew. You can't just tick the box by rattling off complex jargon or regulation numbers if your team doesn't truly get it.
That's huge for the PIC. If your VO or PO doesn't understand because you explain it badly, you, the PIC, are still on the hook if something goes wrong. It's a human factors thing.
Right. It begs the question, how do you ensure real comprehension, not just a polite nod? It's about making sure the message truly lands. Instead of saying, ensure compliance with Tharkar's 901.23 TWA re-advanced ops protocols, you'd say something like,
Okay, team, this is an advanced flight over the city. We need to be crystal clear on rules. Think of it like our playbook for descent. What do you do? What do I do? That keeps us compliant and safe. The rule means we understand it, not just heard the words.
It's exactly making it practical and confirming understanding. Now on accountability again. Documentation. Briefing records. While maybe not mandatory for every single simple flight yet, they are definitely expected for SFOCs, controlled airspace flights, and critically, under those new SOR 2025-70 rules.
And the implication is massive. If there's an incident, your briefing record becomes legal evidence. Clear, written, timestamp notes, that's your legal shield.
Yeah.
Just saying, oh yeah, we talked about that, holds almost zero weight in an investigation, or worse, in court.
So even if it's not strictly required for a specific flight, documenting your briefings in your flight log or mission plan is a super strong best practice. It's your proof of due diligence, your shield.
And tied right into that is the PIC's job to actively cross-check that the crew actually knows their stuff, not just taking a nod as gospel.
Correct. As PIC, you are legally required to verify that your VO and PO understand their duties, are qualified, and know how to handle contingencies.
And the liability point again. If your VO nods about the RTH procedure but secretly has no clue, and that causes a crash, you, the PIC, are still liable. It forces you to actively confirm understanding, maybe ask them to explain it back to you, not just passively accept agreement, real comprehension, not assumed comprehension.
And it's worth repeating, so many drone incidents, when you dig down, aren't about the tech failing. They're rooted in the human factor.
Yeah.
Often, it's miscommunication caused by fatigue, distractions, assumptions, maybe overconfidence.
Which is where good communication, good pilot decisions, and solid situational awareness all weave together, right? It's all connected. It really makes you think. How do we design briefings not just to share info, but to actively counter these human vulnerabilities, building protocols that work with human nature under pressure?
Exactly. So looking ahead, where are things likely going? Well, future rules might put more direct formal responsibility on VOs and POs, not just the PIC. Think VO certification, maybe digital sign-offs from crew acknowledging their roles and understanding.
More individual accountability.
Right. And briefings themselves will likely get more integrated with digital flight logs, time-stamped, tied to flight data, creating a complete, easily auditable record. Think apps like Sky Commander incorporating this seamlessly.
Makes sense. What else?
With fancier cameras, AI helping out, cloud data syncing, briefing requirements will definitely expand. You'll need to cover cybersecurity, data privacy rules, secure handling, and storage of collected data.
Big considerations there.
Plus, as we see more multi-drone flights and AI playing a bigger role, briefings will need to cover things like autonomy limitations, how humans monitor AI decisions, how the crew interacts with semi-autonomous systems.
Wow, complex stuff.
And expect Canada to keep aligning with global ICAO standards, more standard phraseology, shared competency frameworks, common templates for international consistency. The trend is clear. More structure, more integration, more accountability, all driving towards even greater safety as this industry keeps growing up.
So the future means more structure, more integration, more accountability, leading to hopefully even safer skies. And hey, let's not forget the solo pilot. Self-briefing is a real thing, right?
Absolutely critical and often overlooked. Even if it's just you flying, Transport Canada expects you to mentally self-brief, or better yet, quickly jot down your hazards, flight plan details, risk mitigations.
It's part of your PIC duties, even flying alone.
Exactly. Don't skip it just because there's no crew. The principles of good preparation apply whether it's a team of 5 or just you. It's about personal discipline and thoroughness.
And to really complete the picture, that whole operational loop, post-flight debriefs, they aren't always heavily mandated, but they're huge best practice, right? And hinted at on exams.
Definitely. Think about that scenario. New PO misses 3 hazard calls. What's your next step after landing?
A post-flight debrief.
Exactly. It's your chance to review performance constructively, reinforce the procedures, figure out maybe why the calls were missed, and, crucially, identify how to improve the next briefing. It closes that loop plan. Do, check, act. Continuous improvement. That's professionalism.
Wow. Okay, what a deep dive that was. We've gone from chaotic early skies to today's regulated drone world, seen how history and even cows taught us lessons, looked at the science of making things stick, and peeked into the future.
And the core message, really, is that good briefings aren't just about following rules. They're about safety, efficiency, and making sure information actually lands and sticks with the team. It's how you build that uncrashable team, whether they're in a cockpit or flying a drone.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Maybe think about how these ideas, structured communication, active confirmation, planning for contingencies born from high-stakes aviation, apply in your own world.
Yeah, consider any team you're part of, any project you manage, even just important conversations. Are there small communication gaps, assumptions being made that maybe feel minor now? Could they, if ignored, lead to your own metaphorical cow incident or a sterile cockpit moment where something critical gets missed?
It's a provocative thought. We hope you keep exploring these ideas about human factors, communication, and building really resilient, effective teams.
Absolutely. Keep that curiosity going.
Because you're now not just informed, you're hopefully well-equipped with some powerful insights to make communication uncrashable in your own world. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.